designer, and we're here for an AMA talking about the Unigatchi experience that we're building around the crypto unicorns NFT. So thank you very much for joining us, crypto fans. We have been so privileged to work with a community like yours. You guys are some of the best communities, actually is the best community I've ever worked with. It's a lot of fun, and I just love chatting with all of you. So good morning and hello.
Good morning. So that's Ferodo or Kartik, CEO of Multiversal Ventures and our partner for Unigatchi. We also have speaking for us is Shrax or Akshay, the product designer and UI developer. And we have Amin, the lead designer and UI developer. He's in charge of data collection. I'm also joined by my amazing co-host, Betty Unicorn. Say hi. You're in a voice change right now. So we're going to start off with a couple of questions for Unigatchi Multiversal Ventures, and so we can know more about them and then a bit about yourselves and what your respective roles are and how you play it into Unigatchi.
Sorry, I apologize. Could you repeat that question?
Sure. Can you tell us a little more about yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Karthik. I've been in the I actually started a lot of my open source work in game development a long time ago in, ironically, the Perl community. It's a very old language. It was actually created the same time I was born, 1987. And I have always been in gaming in some form or not. But predominantly, my background has always been in AI. So the last 15 years, I've been building AI in some way or another, mostly in the healthcare space, but more recently in computer vision. And so, that's how I came to actually look at bringing that computer vision sort of experience to games like Unigatchi, where you're able to interact. And that interactivity has always been very exciting for me. In fact, one of the first places that we use ML in games from an interactive perspective is that we built a 2048 game. If you guys remember the game where you're, moving numbers around and adding them up. We did that with an audio based model, and we did that all on the phone. And what's unique about that is none of this actually is running on a server. So why that unlocked something very fundamental in me, where I realized that this works very well with crypto, because now no central server is actually controlling the AI, which basically means there's no centralization for your game logic. So that's one of the reasons that I felt that GameFi was the next evolution of that idea, and which is one of the reasons why we started thinking about building a Unigatchi-like game, and we met Aaron, and the rest is history. And now we're building Unigatchi and hoping to bring it out very soon.
That's so fun. I'm so glad that you guys decided to work with us. How about you, Shrax? Can you tell me more about yourself? Or Amin, can you tell me more about yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, happy to be here. And this is a really amazing community. So I both laugh and excited by each of every comments in most of the channels here. Funny guys, excited guys, love you all actually. And I'm in design and experience business for more than 15 years now, I think, and also doing the UI development for at least past 10 years. Working with Akshay and Karthik last 2 years, and I think it's about 6 months that we are starting on this project from scratch and building something great. Hope you liking the experience with data collection so far, and pretty much soon, I believe, we are going to present you with some experience on the game design and Unigatchi game itself. Akshay, you want to go next?
I think Akshay may be having some technical difficulties, so we're talking to him on Slack. He'll be right back.
Oh,
Okay,
all right.
cool.
That's perfectly fine. So we can just continue with the other questions, and then Akshay can catch up when his audio is all right. Okay, so for those who don't know about Multiversal Ventures, can you tell us more about MV?
Yeah, absolutely. So Multiversal Ventures was more of a conglomerate of a few of us who worked together, like Amin, Akshay, myself. Akshay was actually my boss in a past life, and we decided we wanted to do some more fun stuff. We were in a lot of enterprise AI, and it got boring very quick. So we decided to actually start putting together some colleagues of ours that we really liked working on, and we like doing a lot of fun stuff. And we decided to just come up with a name and brand ourselves, and we decided to call it Multiversal Ventures. So we actually do a lot more than just gaming. We're predominantly right now on the AI side, but we're also looking at bringing the gaming experiences. We also are doing other stuff like some DAO projects that are going to be coming out in the future, other NFT projects, which I'll mention, especially if you're on our Discord. You may have seen a few sneak peeks of it around something called NFT synthetics. So our vision for where the NFT market is going is that the next 1 billion users that are going to be coming onto crypto when crypto does get mainstream. All of you guys are the early adopters. There's now a crossing of chasm that needs to happen between the early adopters and as we start heading into mainstream for crypto adoption. As that happens, we believe that the first billion users for crypto coming onto Web3 are going to be experiencing it through NFTs. And so Akshay, my colleague, came up with a great concept called synthetics, which in the finance world is a derivative of any additional asset that can increase the value of your original asset. So in layman's terms, what that basically means is that today, right now, if you own an NFT, if you bought an NFT off OpenSea, there is absolutely no way for you to contribute additional value to that just by owning it. And so we have this concept that we call NFT synthetics, where if you own an NFT with an NFT synthetic, you can actually do additional stuff on the NFT that should increase the value of that NFT. So think about owning a home. If you own a home and you refurbish, the kitchen, the value of that home should go up, and it does in reality. But if you own an NFT and you decide to market your NFT, does your value of your NFT really go up? There's no real tangible way for an NFT holder today to actually have that control over their NFT in terms of the actual value of it. So that's one of the reasons why we came up with something like Unigatchi, where in my original mind of it is that the more you play with your unicorn, the healthier and happier it is. And over time, that actually should increase the value of your unicorn because it was a loved, a loved and cherished possession of yours. And so when you do decide to sell it in the future, that should be somewhere tracked. And that's where the concept of Unigatchi came into play. And we have a few different different type of classes of synthetics that we have. One of them is the community synthetic, where community comes together and builds something like an AI, a model, which is what we're doing right now with the data collection effort. The other type of class of NFT synthetics that we have is interactions, which is what we're going to be doing with the Unigatchi experience. And then two other types of Unigatchi experience, NFT synthetics that we are thinking of. One of them is what we like to call personification synthetics. So you can actually personify your PFPs and create memes from them. So that basically means you're, posing, and there's a blog post that I'll share later in Laguna Games Discord, where basically I am animating, a character from what's that game? The game with the raccoon. I forgot the name of the game, but it's a very popular game. But basically, I am posing this character, and then I can reshare those poses as different memes. So we call that social synthetics. And then the final type of synthetic that we have a long-term vision on is a portal, where your NFTs themselves have their own lives. That basically means that you don't control the NFT, you don't play a game through the NFT. The NFT is actually a simulation that goes out there and buys stuff, etc. And we'll be talking about that very soon. It's very early on. We're still flushing out the idea, but keep an eye out for it. We're very excited because I think this is how we're gonna move from beyond just you being a passive owner of your NFT to be an active participant in the value of your NFT. And that's what Multiversal Ventures is about.
Wow, that's exciting. I feel like every single part of that, I'm so hyped about it. Oh, I think we have Akshay right now. Akshay, can you hear us?
We can't hear you, actually.
I think he's still having some mic problems. Okay, but that's okay. Let's just move on to the next question so we can check it out. Okay. I'd love to know more about how Laguna Games and Multiversal Ventures like came about and had this partnership. Can you tell us about this?
Absolutely. So Akshay and I had known Aaron a little bit from a while back, but we hadn't really been in touch. And when we first started building a company called Hammer of the Gods, we were actually working on a lot of edge computing concepts. And through that, Aaron saw some of the work that we were doing, and we came through a realization, which I mentioned earlier, that edge computing is very apropos for decentralized marketplaces, because when you have so in this case, like you guys are, giving all of this amazing data to build this ML model today. Who owns that ML model, right? It's not us because it's your data, right? And we believe that that's a community asset. So, however, if it is a model that's owned by the community, someone at some point needs to run a server to actually serve that AI. The problem with that is who's paying for the servers. And that was the fundamental challenge that we saw with a lot of the AI efforts, intelligent NFTs that we're seeing out there, like Altia, etc. Is at the end of the day, who's actually paying for the daily active usage? So if you go on there and you interact with your Unigatchi, someone's paying for the interaction to actually happen, the AI, which is somewhat expensive. So edge computing, which we were doing in Hammer of the Gods, the company that we were working on, we realized that there's a real unlock that happens where if you have edge computing, you're actually able to now decentralize the compute. So now I can put the model that we're going to be building into Arviv, and it's owned by the community because it was built by the community. No single person used it, and whoever interacts with the Unigatchi, that's where the model is actually running. It's running on their phone. There's no centralized server. And so as we had these discussions with Aaron, we realized that, there's an amazing experience to build here. And we started talking about this Unigatchi experience because I was a total fan of Tamagotchi. I play Pokemon Go all the time. And so I really love this idea of, caring for your unicorns because they're so cute and cuddly and you just want to hug them. So that's how that came about. And Aaron, Akshay, and I got really excited about not only just the cuddle aspect, which is very important. 90% of that is for me, but 10% of it also being how it brings about new types of NFT ownership concepts. And hopefully Akshay is now able to speak, so he can talk a little bit more in detail about some of the financial side of it too. But that's how we met Aaron, and Laguna Games and Multiversal came together.
Oh, that's super interesting. And I completely agree with what you said. I love 90s games and I love how they're making a comeback recently. And Unigatchi fits right in.
Yep.
Akshay, can you hear us now? Spence. Yeah, sorry, we still can't hear you.
He's having a lot of trouble. We'll do a mic check the next time around.
It's fine, it's fine. I'm really glad that you guys got to partner up, and even during the bear market, would you say that there's something like especially like difficult or different about partnering up at this time?
I actually think the bear market is an opportunity because there's been a huge reduction on the amount of noise in the marketplace. So this is given opportunities for projects like this to really shine, where there's actual accountability that we have with the community. And especially with the CU fam over here, we don't want to be making things that are, unused. We want to make things along with the community. And I think that is only really possible in a bear market sometimes, because a lot of the sort of scams tend to fall away, right? We've seen, right after the Web 2 bubble in the 90s, a lot of the companies that died out were, companies that shouldn't have been companies, to be frank. And it sometimes sounds a little bit harsh, but there was a tremendous amount of froth with the type of NFT projects that were out there. Um, and so now that in the bear market, I think it also gives a little bit of clarity and sobriety to the type of ideas that are starting to happen now. I've been looking at OpenSea quite often. I like to peruse through all of the NFT connections, and I've seen like cool new experiences like the orbs. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it on OpenSea. Stuff that would have gotten lost in the noise, and I think that's why this is the best time to build something like this.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Like during the bear market, the builders just put their heads down and they just keep building. And I suppose that's what you're going to do. But I'm really
Yep.
curious, why Unigatchi? Like, what's the story behind it? I know that you love 90s games, but why specifically Unigatchi?
So, first of all, it came from the concept of Tamagotchi, and it was around this idea of when I was a kid, the only game console that I had for a while when I moved from, I was very young when I moved from India to, and then my parents were in the Middle East. They had an Atari, but we didn't have it when we came to Canada because we didn't have the right type of connectors. So I didn't have a console for a long time, and the only console game that I really had was Tamagotchi. My dad bought it for me, and I had these cherished moments of waking up and wanting to feed and play and make sure that the happiness was the highest, etc. And that concept was very exciting to me because it brought something digital alive, right? And what is NFT if not that? This whole concept, if you look at an NFT at the fundamental, it's a hash on a blockchain somewhere, right? That's not alive to me. What's alive to me is the fact that I am doing something with it. I want to do something when I have this yearning to play with it. And that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why Unigatchi is there, is because, you know, um, it creates that secondary involuntary need, like want to play with it. And that's why Unigatchi, because it came from that same concept of making something digital alive, making something digital need something from you, and that's a great sort of dynamic to build games on top of.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, I definitely feel you. There's just something different about like your formative years and having video games, the experience that you can have with them. Do you have any like specific like favorite gaming memories about Tamagotchi?
Uh, yeah, absolutely, quite a few. So when I first moved from India to Canada, I actually didn't know anyone, and the town that I moved to, Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, I actually realized that everyone in my class grew up together. So that basically means they went to kindergarten, and all the way up until sixth grade they knew each other. So I was coming in at the sixth grade, I knew no one. And so my friend for a little while before I started making new friends was the Tamagotchi. So I'd be sitting on the bus going to school playing with my Tamagotchi pet. One of them was a whale called Beta, which I had. And so I had like about two of these Tamagotchi things. And that's how I entertained myself, because everyone else was like already friends talking to each other on the bus. And the first time someone talked to me, this shy little kid from India, was because, oh, I also have a Tamagotchi. What? And then that's how that conversation started. And so I have a very cherished memory of that making one of my best first friends in Canada through Tamagotchi. And that's the power of games. It really connects people in ways.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I can also see that happening actually like this year, especially since we recovered from COVID and things have never really been quite the same after that. And I feel like this is going to be such a powerful tool for it. Are we going to see inspiration or nostalgia pieces from Tamagotchi being implemented in Unigatchi, or is it going to be different? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we are first. So the first version of Unigatchi that we're doing is so there is one unique difference between the Tamagotchi experience and the Unigatchi experience is that we're actually building first the foundational layers of getting that edge AI that I was talking about working collectively well with the UI, that Amin's put together. What we want to do is over time actually increase the resolution of those interactions. And what I mean by resolution of those interactions, some of them are right now. There's like 5 different type of interactions that you can do with the thing. You can feed your unicorns. You can keep them happy. You can play games with it. But what we want to do for the first version is get that foundational piece in. But over time, we're going to be adding a lot more different type of interactions. Some of them may be based on the Tamagotchi experience, but I think this is now an opportunity to create new type of experiences that weren't possible on the Tamagotchi because of how small that form factor was, right? In terms of what you could do with it. There's so many more things that we can do with the unicorn. But first, we want to get something out there that's solid and stable, works well on a lot of the devices, no matter where you are on your mobile web or you're on your desktop. Maybe we'll look at a native application for it. We'll have to talk to Laguna Games about that. But long term, what we see is a lot of things being added into this game over time that are some community driven, some of them more driven from a fact that there is more interactions that we want to track on chain. So there's a lot of different ideas, but we are trying to be very focused on making sure we deliver something solid every time we release. So there are going to be more features that are going to come out in the future, but right now the first focus is make every single release of Unigatchi that comes out as solid and stable as possible on as many devices as possible. That means anyone can play with their unicorns anywhere. So you can do it on mobile web. You can download it on Android, iOS directly from the website, or you can do it on your desktop, or you can do it on your iPad, etc. We really believe in that openness of that concept. So we're focusing there first. And then after that, we're going to be adding a lot more fun games to it.
So glad you're focusing on the gaming aspect first and foremost. But I remember that you mentioned. Yeah, sorry. Keep going.
Oh no, sorry, I said absolutely. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I really am curious though about so in the intro you mentioned something about improving the value of a digital asset by what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So an analogy that I used before is basically if you own a house and you redid your kitchen, is the value of your house higher? And I would say yes, right? And so in my aspect, if there's this mimetic value for NFTs that is somewhat also sentimental to me, right? If I had a unicorn that I took care of, and on the blockchain, there's a record of me taking care of this unicorn for 10 years, 15 years, and then I decided to give that as part of my asset over to my kid as part of inheritance, a unicorn that was loved from me that had that transactional record of 15 years is worth way more. That sentimental value, I feel, actually should be something that can be tracked as a mimetic value on the blockchain. And that's what I mean by it, right? Like from Unigatchi, it's literally just simple as that. Now, we can go a little bit further with this, right? Let's say you actually now take those transaction records and it makes them better in certain other games, or it makes them better in certain games, such as the racing game, where if they have better energy, they run slightly faster, right? Those are other type of values that you can add on to your NFT because now that NFT has the potential to earn more rewards in other blockchain games, right? So this is the way I think that taking care of your NFT actually becomes a way for you to invest in your NFT over time because the more you're using it, the more other people see you using it, the more the value of that NFT goes up from a speculative value. But also, because we're going to track this on the blockchain, we can build other mini games on it where you win because you take care of your horse or your unicorn, right? It's like owning a stable of horses in the real world, right? If you're brushing them regularly, they'll listen to you better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that downstream value compounds over time. So we think about compounding interest. I think about compounding mimetic value over time. And that's what I mean by being able to actually increase the value of your NFTs by, falling in love with it, enjoying how you are using a thing NFT, earning more rewards in the future, building something that can become a generational asset, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, this is Akshay. I don't know if you guys can hear, but
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you now.
oh,
Hey.
finally! So
Yay,
sorry.
welcome to the party.
Apologize, everyone. I apologize. This is no tech moment for me. But yeah, I mean, just to add to what Karthik was saying, I think there is this dichotomy right now between blockchain and AI, and it says that if you do one, you cannot do other. Karthik and I, obviously, we've been able. The whole idea behind multiversal is that you can be in multiple universes building things. So we have deep AI background, and we applied that obviously in healthcare and ad tech and a few other places where the traditional Web 2 sense of doing it. But I think where we really see the world going to is the fact that in blockchain there is obviously the next billion users, which Karthik was talking about. But what is missing is the fact that there's a sense of ownership. Today, those are mostly like PFPs. Obviously, you have like Bodiac Club and others that are high end. We think that the real value is how you personalize your ownership over time. And why would somebody buy somebody else's personalized asset, right? And this happens if you see in the physical world all the time. Somebody that's owned by some people want to buy something that's owned by somebody that's famous, right? So we think that the way or the path towards to get there is by bringing AI to NFTs, and it's not in a theoretical way, because like everybody talks about writing papers and showing what AI can do. What we have been doing for the last many years is actually making it very feasible and tractable with current technologies that exist today, right? So just going back to what NFT synthetics that brings the derivative value is the idea that you actually engage with your NFT and build up value of it over time, and do it in certain principled way over time, so that it's available and visible on the chain, and that can be passed on either as inheritance or can be sold, because you may be doing certain things that's so unique to you that somebody else may want it, right? So we see it that way, and it's an opportunity for us to try these things very fast. And this is why gaming is amazing, because gaming has the user base and people want to interact with their assets, and they want to personalize it over time. So that's how we see this, and hopefully like the community actually sees this as well.
Oh man, the more I hear about Unigatchi, the more I want it to be a reality right now. Do you have any more things about Unigatchi that you'd like to share?
You won't have to
Uh,
wait too long.
yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I also have a couple of questions for design. Hmm. Okay. So you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay, so for Amin, what do you think defines great experiences?
Actually that's a very good question. So I think a good experience is experience that is adaptable, so users can adapt to it easily. Affectionate, actually, having or displaying some warmth or affection to it, and adventurous, which users in games, I believe experience should be somewhat in some level adventurous. So users wanted to have some adventure with it, try it, and find the different aspect of it, and also easygoing at the same time. So have a easygoing process. All of these things together, I believe, can create a great experience in game designs.
Good answer. Can you tell us more about the systems that you use to create these concepts for Unagachi?
You mean design systems? I believe
Yes.
so. So regarding design systems, crypto unicorns already have a corporate identity and a sense of design to all of the unicorns. So they follow a specific guideline, really, which is well taught. We try to create a custom design system based on those to somehow have the same sense of the experience, but in the gaming world. So our design system is custom made, and according to all of the CIs that we already have with the crypto unicorns itself.
Makes sense. Okay. So what I also got from your answer to the first question is that your game design should always put players first. So can you share with us more about how Unigatchi does that?
Um, for that, we need to know what players are here at the first place. You know, so with the Unigachi, users are here to tame their unicorns and have interaction with their unicorns. So we put these interactions at the top priority. How they feed their unicorn, how they play with it, how they interact with it using our AI technology. So putting all of these together, we try to put our users first to create a different and also adaptable experience. So we even create a custom data collection for that. It moves the whole interaction. So if you go on and register on our data collection app, you can make sure that our app is actually responds better to you. So you can, in this game, you can actually and literally interact with the unicorn using your camera. I think Kartik can explain about that better than me, but we have this sense of pose detections, which you can pose to the camera, and your unicorn reflect to you in his unique way. Yeah, I think that's amazing, actually.
No, you got it. You got it right on the dot, Amin. Yeah. So from part of the experience, part of it is definitely the ML. So one of the tricky challenges that we're actually working in the middle of working on the game development side is, if you wave your hand and you say hello, the ML is gonna recognize you waving your hand probably like 10,000 times in 5 seconds, right? But the unicorn won't have time to actually do those animations and make that real, make it feel and look real, like as if like you're actually saying hello to a unicorn. So that part of the experience is very tricky to nail down because it's different from device to device. And that's something that we're working on right now with the Laguna Games team. And huge shout out to the Laguna Games team and our developer Anugrah, who couldn't join today, but he's the guy who's sitting there with all the 3D assets and making sure all the animation rigs are behaving appropriately. And when we start finally doing that integration between the ML and the actual 3D assets, we're going to put a lot of effort into making it feel like when you say hello, the actual unicorn is, interacting in a way that feels real. And that experience part is somewhat hasn't been done. So we're gonna be the first people to ever do that on mobile web, on desktop, on phones, on iPads. So it's gonna be an interesting challenge, but we're up to task for it. We think we know how to crack it. And when we do the beta testing, we're going to get a lot of feedback, hopefully from the community and from the Laguna Games developers, and we will use that to continue to improve that interaction over time. But that part is, sometimes you just have to try things. You just have to break a few eggs and see what kind of omelet you can make and improve over time. So that part of the experience, what I'm talking about, is not traditional Web 2. It's not traditional Web 3. It's a whole beast of its own, and we're gonna figure out how to do it. But we're figuring out how to do it one step at a time.
Yeah, actually, on this game, we are integrating ML with blockchain and game development, both on mobile and desktop, which is, I believe, is a exceptional thing to do. Yeah.
Yep, well said, man.
All right, thank you so much for that. Now I feel like nostalgia games are really making a comeback. Do you guys know about like that? Uh, Bill Wright, yeah, the guy who made The Sims. He raised like I think
Yep.
6 million to make like a Web3 simulation game. How do you feel about that? Do you have something like that in store for the community with Laguna Games?
Yeah, we are thinking of some concepts around that. Although we probably won't have $6 million to do it, but we are thinking about simpler ways of doing simulation games. So I am a huge, huge, huge fan of simulation games. I don't know if any of the community here ever played Black and White, which was, you were a god, you had a bunch of followers, you had, an avatar, which was a divine avatar of your, divinity, and it was just a mind-blowing game. And then there's also games like Dwarf Fortress. There's a lot of these different type of games, and they all fundamentally work around a type of gaming concept called entity component systems. So Will Wright actually did that with The Sims, right? Where these Sims essentially had a life of their own, right? They were all entities, and they all had individual components like personalities or hunger, etc. And over time, that led them to certain actions, right? So they became actors in the game. We are thinking about how to actually do that in a way where it doesn't completely die because of gas fees, but also in a way that it is actually immutable and on the chain. So there's that one challenge, and I think Will Wright will definitely figure out the gaming part of stuff. Like, of course, he built the Sims and he knows how to do that. But what's going to be tricky is how that's actually going to translate to on chain. And we feel we have a few ideas. We have something coming up in the thing, something called Guji. It's gonna if you join us on the Multiversal Discord, we'll put sneak peeks out. Right now we're 100% focused on Unigatchi because we want to get that out. But Guji is going to be a small experiment, a very small collection of maybe 5 or 6 NFTs that are actually living NFTs. And I don't mean intelligent NFTs. These are NFTs that interact with each other. And what you're essentially buying with that NFT experience is a sim, and that simulation, that sim can actually go and live a whole life, and you can decide to buy things for the sim, but you don't control the sim. So that is a new gameplay that we haven't seen in Web3. So that's why we're doing a mini experiment around it. It's going to be called Guji. We're going to launch it after we get Unigatchi under our belt. But that's something we're very excited to put together, and there's some really cool ideas, and Amin put some really amazing art behind it. It's very, very simple. We're not trying to do a very complex, full-fledged game, and I think that's something that's really different about Multiversal than a lot of the NFT projects out there. We tend to do less first, right? We want to get stuff working well first before we add more stuff on top of that backbone. So when you look at Guji, it's going to be the bare minimum for a sim game, but then that's going to lead us to actually build other type of simulation concepts in maybe crypto unicorns, maybe in other type of NFT collections out there that people want to add simulations into. But we like to prove out the concept with skin in the game. So we're actually going to mint those NFTs, and then we're going to build a portal around them where they can go and live a life, and you get to follow them along for the ride, as long as you own the NFT. And that's something that we're going to be putting out. We don't have a date on it yet, but that's something we've already started a little bit of work on, at least from the design perspective.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. I feel like your VP is all about marrying the importance of advanced AI plus the core features of blockchain technology. Do
Yep.
you have any other ideas on how maybe like players at the center of these kinds of games, like what else you can develop for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about some of the mimetic experiences around games. So, we've seen we've all seen the rise of Twitch and reactions to Twitch, etc. So I think there's definitely like certain concepts where the player-centric actions where you're playing the game versus the viewer-centric actions of you're watching someone play the game. There's a lot of different type of concepts that are very uh, very possible now with what's happening with the blockchain, what's also happening with decentralized computing, where you can do replays, stuff like that, and we're thinking about how we can actually bring that sort of dynamic into Web3 games, right? And we don't have it completely cracked yet, but those are some type of mimetic aspect of games that we want to try to capture into games like Unigatchi, into games like Guji, into games like one of the games that we're also looking at long term, or NFT synthetic we're looking at long term, is the Raccoonverse, and we're trying to see how we can bring these other universe of ideas into play to build amazing experiences. And that's why we're Multiversal Ventures, right? We're going on an adventure to take something that hasn't been put together before and create a brand new thing. So there are quite a few different ideas like that, and we're learning every time we talk to each community we work with.
And I'll add some things there as well. I think Karthik mentioned this a while back, which is about the idea of bringing taking your NFTs into portals. Portals are like metaverse and other experiences. There are a few limitations there today, which the community may be actually aware, which is around multiplayer. So if there are too many multiplayers, then how do you keep the state synchronized? That's a hard problem. So this is where we feel that AI and some of the work we did previously in our other startup called Hammer of the Gods, which was around edge computing, will actually have some benefits, because we are not necessarily translating the entire state in a multiplayer game to a central location in order for it to be consistent. So we can do a lot of predictive aspects on the edges. That means that where the single user is playing the game. So we think that there are some ideas that this team has that can actually change and accelerate adoption. But we want to start with experiences. As Karthik said, we want to do a few things and do it really well. And while we are actually trying 100 different things behind the scenes, we want to bring them out to the community and sort of in an open source way for everyone to like benefit from that.
It sounds good to me. Okay,
Yep.
so that's all of the questions that I have. Sorry, community, I kind of monopolized them for 43 minutes. But you can ask your questions now. So if you'd like to ask a question, please press the speak button. And then I'll pick it up so you can get on the stage. We do have a player concern though. So Kaiser says, I'm just worried on how I should take care of around 120 unicorns, which is a pretty valid concern because we have some people who have plenty of unicorns, and since delegation is such a hot topic, do you think that Unigatchi would ever work with delegation? So once somebody's delegated a unicorn, they can also take care of it in Unigatchi?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we're taking a little bit of time to get these concepts nailed down before we bring it onto Unigatchi. So the first version of Unigatchi, as I mentioned, is a mini game that is basically you logging on with your wallet, and with security, we're making sure that you're the person who actually owns the NFT to play with your Unigatchi. But in terms of bringing on additional blockchain concepts like validation, we haven't actually flushed all of those out from a game design perspective, because that's going to have a long-term effect to the economy of the actual NFT. So we want to be a little bit careful of how we bring that on. Right now, we don't have plans to bring that on. But if there's a real need from the community, please let us know on the channel, and we'll bring it up with the third-party partner, Lewis, who just joined, who's our liaison at Laguna Games, and we can start flushing that out as something what the community wants. We want to build stuff you guys want. So if you guys feel that validation should be a concept that shows up in Unigatchi, then we'll figure it out for you and we'll make it happen.
Oh, that's so nice. All right, you're a dev community, so if you want anything additional with Unigatchi, if you have a specific feature that you'd like to be implemented, please do not be shy and let us know. Okay. So here's a
Absolutely.
question that has already been answered in text, but I feel like it's also important to get through voice so you can elaborate on it more. So is Unigatchi a game just for playing with the unicorns? Will you ever consume or burn RBW or UNIM or any other currency?
Yeah, it plays for fun right now. So that basically means you don't have to burn or consume any of the RBWs or the unims. So we did that because we want to stabilize the gaming aspect of it to make sure that no one loses out on anything in terms of an actual cryptocurrency value, because the game didn't behave the way they expected, right? So we want to nail down the fun part of it first, and then we'll layer on top of the blockchain concepts in a second release that we're going to do on it. And we're going to roll it out very methodically because we don't, again, want to mess with the economy that's already there. So everyone's putting a lot of love and care into building this economy around the crypto unicorns. We want to be careful about that. So that's one of the reasons why it play for fun first.
That completely makes sense. All right. Let's see. So since you're already thinking about this, but also you're considering the economy of the game, do you have any other long-term goal features that you're thinking of that maybe you're not sure if you'll implement it yet, but it's definitely on your mind?
Yeah, so one thing I already talked about is that we would track certain things on the blockchain based on mini challenges. So, for example, if you've been taking care of your unicorn, we track the state of your unicorn in terms of health and how well it's been fed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that actually has an impact on gameplay and other mini games. So you can go head to head with your NFT and someone else's, your unicorn and someone else's unicorn, and you can do games like Hopscotch or Frogger, and the
Aw.
results of those games would actually lead to an economic value change. Like, imagine you had basically that you own the unicorn that was the best unicorn at the hopscotch. That I think means something, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the long-term ideas that we have.
Oh, that's adorable. Speaking of adorable, we do have some parts of crypto unicorns that aren't quite so adorable. Do you have plans of including shadow coins in Unigachi?
Yeah, we have talked to Aaron about this. We don't know exactly how we're gonna bring that into play. One of the ideas that we did see is if you've seen the sneak peek videos, there are stickers and stuff that we're thinking maybe you can potentially trade for shadow coins. I don't exactly understand how we're gonna make that trading so that it's fair and economically wise. But those are some of the ways that we were thinking that you could actually burn shadow coins and do certain extra things with your Unigatchi.
That's interesting. Okay. So there might be an option to burn shadow coins in the future, if ever.
Yeah. As long as it makes sense for the overall value of the collection, right?
Economically.
If it's
Yeah.
something that ends up being a burn, then we don't, or that doesn't lead to a good enough tangible value for the community, then that's probably something we won't do. So we will do a lot of little beta experiments on test chain, on testnet, and we'll test that out with the Laguna Games team. We have unicorns ourselves. I have a bid out on a couple ones. So whoever sees my bid name on it, please let me have a few more unicorns. But that's just aside. So we will do a lot of beta testing to test out what that economy concept looks like. There's another concept that we're actually testing that may be a little bit new, um, which is we want to try to simulate the impact of some of these. This is part of the simulation concepts that we're bringing into Guji. We want to actually simulate out the economical impact of adding new type of transactions, right? So, for example, burning a shadow coin to buy a sticker that you put into Unigatchi, and the impact of that to the Unigatchi, and try to simulate that out before we actually try to roll those out. But those concepts take time to think through. And so we don't have that on our roadmap just yet. But we have thought about it. But we've been prioritizing, of course, building an amazing experience first.
Understandable. Okay. We have Tara Rect who wants to ask a question. Please come up on the stage, Tara.
Hello,
Hey,
hello. Hi,
good
everyone.
morning.
Hi.
Hi, Frodo. Hi, hi. Okay, when I first saw Unigachi, it reminds me of the early NFT days on Rarible with the Toy Box team. Do you remember that?
I haven't seen that, but if you share a link, I would love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share it in Discord. Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the one where they have 3D models within Toy Box. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
interesting. Yeah. So my question is, does each unicorn NFT have its own individual machine learning data, or all of the unicorn NFT would have the same reaction data?
Yeah, so the way we have one community AI model right now, so that basically means the data collection that we've been doing has been used to train one model. So in ML, instead of having personalized models for every single user out there, there's a catch-22 with ML. The more data we collect about any one person, the more identifiable they become, and we really believe in the concept of anonymity, right? We don't want to have everyone's photos um, all the time just so that we can build a very good model just for them, which is one of the reasons why we're doing it across the community. And if you notice, we don't ask for any identifiable information in the actual data collection aspect, and that's on purpose, right? We're very conscious of privacy. And that being said, like if anyone does want to have us delete their photos after we're done training, please let us know. We are on the sub channel on the Unigatchi support channel. We are taking your tracking codes, and we will happily remove if you guys have any of those privacy concerns. So that's one of the reasons why there's the first release is a single community model, which is trained across everyone's data that was collected. So that allows us to give a better performance because our top North Star is the best possible experience. So what that means, Teract, is we need to make the model highly accurate, right? Otherwise, imagine you're trying to say hi to it and it ends up going to sleep, right? It's just not a good experience, which is one of the reasons why we've gone with this model of having one model for the entire collection. But in the future, there is a way to do compositional models where we do small little models with small data collection projects in more privacy preserving ways that will add different type of personalization concepts to individual type of NFT. So, for example, for Mythic, there's a few different type of animations in the 3D Blender files that we haven't actually tapped into yet. Maybe the Mythic ones will have a few additional type of gestures. So there's like different type of personalization that would come in over time. Hopefully that answered your question. Um,
Yeah, it's a good answer. And how I came about this question is because there's an existing NFT project called Aletheia.ai. So what they do
yep,
is the same machine learning concept, but what they did was each NFT has a different model by itself. So if were to sell that NFT to someone or pass it on to someone, that NFT
yep,
would actually have the legacy from my experience, from my machine learning experience with it.
yep, yep. Yeah,
I
the
think
reason
I
why
think
we
the
didn't
goal.
go.
Oh,
Oh,
go ahead,
go
Karthik.
ahead, Shay. Yeah. Let me just close that out. The reason why we
Yeah.
didn't do that is because the Althea's AI actually runs on their servers. So in a
Ah,
sense that
okay.
it's not decentralized, right? Which is why the models that we're building are actually very, very small and they run on a phone. So for example, if our backend servers ever went down, as long as you have it on your phone, you can still play with your Unigatchi experience. And because the blockchain is always going to be there, you can always write state to the blockchain. So that's one of the major fundamental difference that we're doing. So yes, they're absolutely right. There's a trade-off, right? Individual models become running on a central server can become way more powerful and nuanced. But at the same time, if that server goes down, no one can interact with their NFT, right? And our
Ah,
North Star is best possible experience ever.
all right. That makes sense. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you so much, Tara. So if you guys have any other questions, I think we can take one more question before we end this AMA. Do you have any
I think there was a
questions?
question I saw
Yeah.
on the guest AMA that said, "Is this mobile?" Yes, it's mobile. No, we won't be killing unicorns. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. uh, we're not thinking too much on the penalty part of it because I don't think that's necessarily fair. Um, and yeah, those were the two other questions that I saw on the channel. If there's any other ones, yeah, please let us know. Happy to answer them anytime.
Okay, so that concludes our Unigatchi AMA with Multiversal Ventures. We'll see you next week for our Twitter Spaces with Multiversal Ventures and on Discord for our weekly town hall number 15. Don't miss it. We'll post a recording of this AMA on our socials if you'd like to give it a re-listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow unicorn fans who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on the Unigatchi support channel under the second party partners category. By the way, before we end this AMA, we have a little ritual for everybody who comes over and does an AMA with us. Do you know about it?
No.
All right, so we're gonna have to hear every one of you say ooh woo. All right,
Oh.
you first. Okay, actually, I mean,
Oh, look.
Okay. Ooh.
nice.
Ooh.
Okay.
They did it, Unicorn fam. Okay, you have our 100% support now. Okay, this has been Unicorn with co-host Winnie Unicorn. Good morning, good night, and see you in gang, Unicorn fam. So excited for Unigatchi. All right,
Thank you for having us. Bye.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so
Too.
Thanks for
much.
them, guys. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye.
week.